Hello, hello. Welcome on this beautiful Wednesday. You are starting to watch the Ask the Experts live stream. We are here every Wednesday, 12 Eastern, or I'm always happy when I'm with my West Coast folks. So y'all know what it's like to wake up, rush in the morning, get to the stream. So we're here at the 9 a.m. on the West Coast. Somebody I met at the conference was watching from Hawaii, so I feel bad for them because they got to wake
Oh my
up at
gosh.
6 to watch us. But
the commitment is
I
solid.
know. We love it.
Love it.
We love it. Plus, when you're in Hawaii, people just seem happier. So maybe I would wake up at 6 if I was in Hawaii because I'd want to seize days. There's just more traffic for us. But welcome, everyone. My name is Chris Trondsen. I'm a licensed therapist that treats OCD, BDD, and related disorders. And I am also on the board of directors for the International OCD Foundation, vice president of OCD Southern California, an official affiliate of the International OCD Foundation. I also serve as one of the IOCDF advocates, and I run a few of their special interest groups. And one of my favorite things about my life, I guess it's weird to say, but is hosting these live streams, because I know so many people, whether you're a newer clinician, a seasoned clinician, a parent, a spouse, a person with OCD, people who have parents with OCD. I know a lot of people get so much from our guests on the show, so I'm always excited to bring people on and share their wisdom with you. So I will introduce my guests in a second, but always just a couple housekeeping things. These live streams, we're here every week. They're intended to give you resources, education, show you kind of just different aspects of OCD and OCD treatment. But the only thing we can't be is your clinician, and we can't jump in on an emergency. We can't take care of a crisis situation. So we want to make sure that everybody watching gets the help they need. You can go to iocdf.org/find-help. The three of us are on there. You can find a clinician in your area. That's how many years ago I found my clinician, and why I am here today. And that's why I'm always so grateful to the IOCDF after a year and a half of busted therapy, finding the right therapist.
Good way of putting it.
So definitely check that out. Also, if you're in a crisis situation, you can go to 988-lifeline.org. You could go to your local emergency room, dial 911. I know out of the United States, there's some other places that you can go and dial and stuff. So please just get the help. We can't help you with that, but we can definitely provide you with a service. The only other thing is we're live right now on multiple platforms. We're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitch, we're on X, we're on LinkedIn, and iocdf.org live. So make sure that you're saying hi to everybody. I always tell people, you are all watching this. This is like your stream. This is your chat. I'm just here to support you. So no matter where you're at on whatever platform, tell us where you're from, say hi, who are you here to support. Also, ask questions. We're gonna the platform always is I kind of pick the brains of my guests for about 15-20 minutes, and then we spend the rest of the time answering questions. So the more questions you ask, the more that we can answer. So please jump in and do that. The only other announcement I have is my darn what is it called? What did we call it?
Fire alarm.
Smoke alarm. It's smoke.
Whatever
detector.
It is. Smoke.
Fire detector. That's what I think it's called. My darn fire detector, like 10 minutes before this live stream, decided to be low battery. And I tried to destroy it and do everything I could, and it would not stop. I ripped the thing out, and it still beeps louder because now you didn't have. Yeah.
You can tape it.
Oh, well, Kelly, where were you 10 minutes ago?
I know. Well, I was trying to fix my audio.
It sounds good, by the way. So if you hear a random beep,
treat it like an intrusive thought.
Yes.
Pretend it doesn't exist. Well, I am so excited to have both of my, I accidentally closed out of your bio. So I'm going to do the friend bio.
Okay.
And then, at the end, maybe I'll say your real bios because they closed it out. So these two are actually friends of mine. I love when they're people I know and I'm close with. So both Lauren and Kelly work in Orange County. They're both licensed treatment providers, and they have OCD. So they're like me. We're like family like that. Additionally to that, they host the Purely OCD podcast. You can definitely watch those on Instagram. They're constantly putting out good content. Both of them have their own practice, and so treat in Orange County. But because they're virtual, you can see them in California. And hopefully one day, I was reading a post about more and more legislation pushed through that providers could see across state lines. So that's a fingers crossed. People want to get help from you everywhere. So I'll read your official bios at the end because I like closed out the window and I just don't want to take time. But is there anything I missed? Anything you're excited about that you want to share?
Oh, I do have something that I'm excited about. In fact, I'm hoping I think the book has been sent to you, Chris, to be read.
I've read it. So the good thing is I read it.
Oh, that's good.
I'm a perfectionist, so I'm on like draft 18 of what they want from me, and I have until tomorrow. So just tell your publishers, like, Chris has probably been working on it longer than everyone else, but it'll
probably longer than the book, actually.
Yeah. Actually, I'm on chapter 16 of.
You're writing new chapters.
Yes.
Yeah, no, so I have a book coming out in January of 2026. So that's an exciting thing that to share. It's called the Mental Compulsions Workbook for OCD. And mental compulsions are something that I am particularly passionate about and about talking about because they are Kelly once called them the secret agents of compulsions. They are just really tricky to navigate sometimes. And so, that's.
And we needed a book about it.
Well,
we don't really have a specific book on mental compulsions.
Well, that's how I felt about the book. So I did read it, like I said, and I think the one thing, and what I'm going to try to say eloquently, because I know I only get a little bit of time in the book to write, but no, I think one of the things that, working in a higher level of care, when clients come to me, I always ask what has worked previously and what doesn't work, because I don't want to repeat the same things that other clinicians, especially if that person was referred to me by someone I know and trust. I'm like, okay, there probably wasn't. Maybe it's just the frequency. That might always be it.
Yes.
But one thing that I see in less seasoned clinicians is there is such a mental component missing. And what I'll find out from the client is that they won't be doing physical compulsions, but mentally they're spending all day. So let's say they're triggered at 8 a.m. It's 5 p.m. and they're still thinking about the same thing, but they're not recognizing that that's a mental compulsion. And so I think if you are watching this and you're like, I don't get it, I've stopped doing compulsions, I'm living differently, but I'm just haunted all the time. With the OCD, it just seems to come back. I tell people, start tracking, like, what are you thinking about throughout the day? Are you thinking about your cousin's bat mitzvah? Are you thinking about your daughter's quinceanera? Are you thinking, I don't know why I'm being ethnic today. Are you thinking, are you thinking about what you're cooking later or a trip you're going on? Or are you still wondering if you said a horrible racial slur to your boss yesterday morning, right? So that's really it. So actually, that's where I'll start. I have 3 bullet points I want us to talk before we jump into Q&A, but that was one of them, and I want to get both of your opinions. Tell me a little about what are mental compulsions? Why do they seem to be missed? Why don't clinicians seem to find them? And like you were saying, Kelly, the kind of like the secret, how do you think it's impacting people's recovery?
Well, that's there's a lot to be said about all of that. Kelly, do you want to start? I don't want to.
Sure.
Yeah.
I would say with mental compulsions, the issue, and I think that John Hirschfield told me this or said it somewhere or I read it somewhere, but it's like if you've gotten to the point where you're observably doing compulsions, we know that what predated that was the mental compulsions, right? Like that's how it all begins, is there. If you think about the 3 of us and how you got to the point of where you're actually doing this very overt compulsive, whether it's washing or checking, think about how you got there, right? Like that's kind of this gateway drug, if you will, to a higher level of compulsions. So if you are treating somebody who's doing these very overt compulsions, I mean, ding, ding, like, yes, we have to treat those, and those we can treat a little bit faster and they're a little more concrete. But then we have to really go in and be like, listen, I need you to track every time you're getting those intrusive thoughts. And really, mindfulness is the key to all of this, right? Like awareness of the present moment. It's hard to get people to get buy-in on that. But
yeah,
segue to Lauren.
Yeah, no, but I think that's such a good point that, oh no, I lost my train of thought. I love it when that happens. You said something that I was going to play off of, but here we are. But mental compulsions, I think, because most people do them. That's what I was going to say is that and I talk about this a little bit in the book, but studies show different things. And I personally, just from a clinical vantage point, think everyone to some greater or lesser extent engages in mental compulsions, like you were saying, Kel. And like in terms of the reason that clinicians miss them, or because I know that was part of your question,
sorry.
Chris. No, is that I don't think that we really have a framework culturally, like the culture at large, for mental behaviors. Like nobody taught me that thinking was a behavior ever.
Yeah, it is.
And it's a behavior that stands to consume so much of your time and energy and attention. It's also a really helpful behavior when used effectively, right? Thinking and analysis and problem solving, all these things are like, you know, what I think have helped our species to be so so successful, right? And to make so much progress. So but understanding that thinking is a behavior, that you can have these automatic thoughts pop into your head, but the response to them, the attempts to try to pick them apart and analyze them and resolve the feelings that those automatic thoughts bring about, which oftentimes we're looking at like anxiety, we're looking at guilt, we're looking at disgust, right? In the context of OCD. Like trying to get rid of those feelings by actively thinking, and understanding that difference between thoughts versus thinking is a nuance that, again, we don't really have in our culture, and a lot of clinicians are missing too.
Right.
I think.
I like to think about what I talk to clients about in this very topic is like, you have the O, and the O is not none of my business, right? Like if I didn't have an O, I wouldn't be hosting this live stream. I'd be working at Applebee's and living my best life, right? But you know, it's like the O you have no control over. But the second the O, I always remind my clients, the O is going to be 2 minutes or less, right? Like, you know, I'm at my cousin's birthday party, and I see a little kid kind of playing around the pool, and I just get this intrusive thought that says, you're going to throw the kid in the pool and watch them drown and enjoy it. That's OCD's job, right? The rest of it is my job. That O is going to become a C. And what I do with that C is either going to be the mental compulsions you talk about in the book, or it's simply going to be like, there you are again, OCD, always telling me some crazy mess. I'm going to go back over to the taco bar and have a great time. Thanks, though. You know, it's like how you treat it, right? And I think what people don't realize is if I spend the rest of that family party questioning my intent, do I want to push the kid in the pool? What was that feeling like? I'm trying to get rid of that image. I need to go to my car and just sit there and kind of think for a little bit. All of that is the C, right? And so even if I'm not doing something physical, but I'm interacting with my family, but I'm tuning them out. And in my head, the whole time I'm thinking about it, that's the C. And if clinicians aren't teaching this to the clients, they may go back to the session and be like, you know, I had a thought about pushing a kid in the pool, but I didn't leave the party. Everything went great. Well, that's half the battle. You know, you and your clinician don't know that you spent the other 8 hours mentally compulsing, which is, if anything, I always say to my clients, a little bit more dangerous, because you can do it when you're working, when you're at school, when you're driving. You can't wash your hands on the freeway, you know?
And consuming and like the taking away from your life, right? You can be at a party, but not be at the party. And
totally.
And what's also really frustrating about mental compulsions is not only I find that they're not as effective in some ways as other compulsions, right? Like avoidance, and I like look, they all have their issues, and they're all the issue, right? Like they are the thing that we are targeting, and that lead to problems in life. But it's very difficult to resolve something with just your head, right? No matter how smart you are, you don't have the answers. And so you're more likely, again, in my clinical experience, to retrigger yourself in that process. Like you start trying to analyze something and you realize, but what about this? And now you've got a new obsession that's taking you down an entirely different path. But yes, I totally agree, Chris. It's like that active part and helping people to understand, like, obsession's none of my business. That's going to come up. Okay. What do I want to do with it?
Yeah. And Kelly, with your clients and with your own self, what do you find to be, well, let me ask this question first. I think sometimes it's obvious to us because of where we are in recovery and we're therapists, right? But I don't know how y'all felt. Like when I was doing mental compulsions, I thought I was like solving stuff. I'll never forget, there's like an image once that I saw, and it was like never give up. And it's a guy like mining in a mine, and he's like stops prematurely, and there's like diamonds right behind it, and the other person goes, and that's how it feels. It's like OCD convinces us if you just spend 5 more minutes figuring this out, you're on the verge. So Kelly, like, what do you see? Do you see it effective? Do you have clients have these aha moments and prematurely end therapy because they're like, I figured it out, Kelly, I never need to come back again? Or do mental compulsions seem to just spiral people down worse?
I mean, I think earlier on in my career that would happen. But definitely now I'm like, no, we're not done yet. Like, we've just started, actually. But yeah, I think also I'd like to add to that is like with the mental compulsions, for me, it would be like, oh, you're gonna not think about that. You're a bad person, actually. You're turning your back on the fact that maybe your child is dead in the crib right now, and I'm sitting here just chewing it over. Like, let me try to remember, how was her head sitting? Was there anything in the crib? Should I go back and scan again and make sure there's not a blanket that's fallen? But then thinking, okay, don't, like, we're going to stay with the present moment. We're going to redirect. We're watching this show. Come back. But it's also what's left when I say come back is the guilt that's misdirected, right? It's misguided. It's saying you were bad because you've turned your back on the fact that maybe you could have saved your child and now she's dying. And you're watching this show. Like, really nice mom, right?
Yeah.
So that's also a caveat of like treating the mental compulsions. And I think something that clinicians sometimes miss as well is like, we have to realize that like guilt, just because guilt's present doesn't mean we have to act on guilt. Just like anxiety, just because fear's present doesn't mean we need to act on fear. Guilt works the same way in this way.
Can you both talk about that, what you just mentioned, Kelly? I think the word that I always talk to clients about is you're going to feel irresponsible when you start to walk away from mental compulsions. It's going to feel like there's an open ticket, right? Like there's some emergency happening and you're like in a superhero movie walking away and the bombs are going off behind you, right? Like you're just walking away from this like solvable puzzle. How do people watching and clients get over the fact that, hey, if you stop doing mental compulsions, like you were saying, Kelly, you're in the living room watching TV, OCD is saying, I think your baby's choking in the crib, and you don't figure it out. Like, talk about that kind of like just feeling irresponsible or feeling like you're being reckless, and how do you overcome that?
I mean, I treat it like it's an exposure, right? I say guilt is no different in this situation as the fear is like it's misguided. It's the first time it's just OCD's using another attempt to try to catch your attention. I don't know if, Lauren, do you want to add to that?
I totally agree. I think that the emotion it is. And I think actually kind of leading into sort of befriending your mind a little bit more around all of this stuff is like, it's not ill-intended. It's not like your brain's thinking, how do I ruin Kelly's day? Right? Like you know, like, and I think that sometimes we take that stance, but that it's like,
to save.
So whether that's right. So whether guilt is coming up to try and get your attention or anxiety is coming up, it's saying, hey, there's danger over here. And it's our job to go, well, wait a second. Best guess, is there danger? And it's tricky because then, and I like what Kelly was talking about, that what I was thinking about as well is like, it then builds from like upon the, am I being irresponsible? I often hear people say like, well, what if this isn't OCD?
Right. There you go.
Right.
That's
like,
it.
And that's actually how Kelly and my friendship really began in earnest, as we started talking about obsessions about recovery, because we're huge nerds. But I think that they are the more common than people think. I see them all the time, and the concern of like, oh, well, but maybe I'm being irresponsible and I'm ignoring this. And what it's really, I'm not struggling with OCD. My fear is an accurate representation of what's likely to happen. And it's hard because we can't know, right? Like that element, that component of uncertainty that is our lot in life, I think. So I guess in terms of like how one navigates that, it's like Kelly was saying, you know, going about your life with that feeling, that guilt, that fear. But I think what's really important, given that we are talking about mental compulsions, is that we're not, the feeling part doesn't have a story attached to it, right? If we're talking about accepting anxiety, we're not talking about accepting anxiety about anything, if that makes sense. And so, because I think as soon as we start assigning a story to it, we're thinking. So it's really about like getting down to, okay, I'm feeling anxious right now. Right. What does anxiety feel like?
Yeah.
Can I open toward this experience? Can I soften toward whatever I'm physically feeling in my body, and then reorient toward what's actually going on in my life with whatever feelings I'm having in tow?
Well, your brain's going,
correct.
on fire, right? Like
this
is definitely a practice, right? And that's the hope that we can get there. But absolutely, I think what Lauren's saying is spot on, is like we have to start with the foundational of this is the goal and this is where we need to start, is recognizing thinking, right? And the judgment.
If I may add one additional thing, I'm so glad, Kelly, you're such a good foil to me, and like to be like while going, you know, and I think understanding that all three of us, right, are coming at this from a place of lived experience and understanding the terror that comes with saying, I don't know. So none of this is said lightly. It is really, really scary. And fear is the gateway to the life that you want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I did a talk with another clinician once, and the visual that I always use now for clients, because I always pick up things from everybody, is, you know, just like OCD is a monologue, leave it that way. Don't let it turn into a dialogue.
Yep.
I think one of the things that helped me in my own recovery is like, if I was triggered, something triggered me and I started to have some obsessions, you know, pop up about it. And I found myself mentally compulsing, physically compulsing too, but starting to like go down that path of like, I got to figure this out. I got to make sense of it. The problem is I was operating from this like pure terror standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I really started to recognize there's like two Chris's, right? There's like the calm, cool, collected that can figure stuff out and is intellectual and likes to dive in and likes to read research and likes to figure things out. But when I'm in panic mode, I can't access that Chris.
You're on
and so, yeah, exactly. And so I think all the time, and what I tell clients is you don't want your pilot to be operating from that standpoint. You don't want your Uber driver to be operating from that standpoint. Your brain is asking you, like, do you want to kill your family? Did you just hit somebody with your car? Are you going to hell? Are you hurting children? Do you have a deadly disease? That is not the time to figure it out. Just like you wouldn't want your surgeon to operate. And so one of the things that always helped me is delay. I would leave, you know, I would because I would think about getting cancer. Like I'd be walking out of a store and see the Prop 65. If you're not in California, we have Prop 65 everywhere, where it means that there are certain items in that building that could cause cancer. I learned later, like if I went in the roofing, open it up and start chewing it, which I don't do at Target, but you know, but like I'd be leaving the store. And my brain would be like, everything that you just bought is contaminated. It has cancer-causing stuff. Throw it away. Immediately go home, shower it after you, start to do research. And like my brain, which is crazy for our OCD brains, my brain is like this computer, and it's like, must fix this situation. But what worked for me is I was like, Chris, you have 2 other errands. Let's go do that.
Yes.
Let's go home. Let's put these items away. Let's eat dinner. Let's spend some time with the family. Let's go to bed, and let's deal with it in the morning. You're not going to save cancer in this headspace tonight. Let's just go home, etc. But the key, and what we're talking about, is I can't spend the whole time thinking about it until the morning, because then I'm never out of it. I'm never out of it. I'm never out of that like spiral.
The same thing. Yeah.
Totally. Exactly. And I think we think the physical one, I stopped the physical one, I'm a good person. It's like, no. The physical one's huge, and props, right? I was proud of myself. So what I would do is get really good at just like focusing out, right? There's Oh, I was just using it for my group last night. It's more about BDD.
Mm.
And then I'll be able to do this with my group, Lauren. When you have your book, I use all your books. And then Kelly and
Oh.
I, we can go cry because we don't have books. Unless you have a
Yeah.
book, and then I'm the only one that cries.
Maybe one day. It's a lot of work.
Yes. but
I've been
there's
approached.
one thing I like about this book, even though it's BDD, Fugan Ezeroglu talks about attention training, and she talks about, and I'm using it for OCD, is like you have an
Absolutely.
internal focus and an external. And going back to that example, which was a true example, what I did is I'm like, I can't be internally focused. I'm over if I do. Let me focus out. What's
Dead
the
in the
song
water.
on the radio? What is the smells of the store when I walk in? What is my family talking about dinner? How does the food taste? Let me go to sleep. And when I did that combined action, when I woke up in the morning, I was like, oh, I ain't throwing everything away. It's too expensive and I don't care and I'm not doing research. And then the next time I was in the same situation, I'm like, Chris, you already know you're just going to go home, move on. Let's just cut to the chase and just move on. So that's how, to me, it kind of all came about. Do you, either of you, like, remember like when you really started understanding like how mental compulsions work, and what was that like to kind of triumph over that so it wasn't all consuming?
It's profound, the triumphing part.
Yeah,
I will
yeah.
say. Kel, do you have something I can go or not?
Well, and I've said this in the past in other disclosing events like this, is that I think mindfulness really shifted the tides for me. Is like once I really understood watching what thinking, because if we don't realize what's going on in our own mind, right? Because that's half the problem. We have no chance. We're dead in the water. We have no ability to acknowledge the difference between the obsession, and then those mental compulsions going on. So once that's my road, right? That doesn't mean that's everybody's road. But once I started to practice just watching, okay, I'm brushing my teeth. Let's watch my mind and see where it's going in a not like a lower arousal state. Like you said, we don't want to solve cancer while we're in an acute state like that, right? Like we're not going to do that. And same with practicing, like meditation is mindfulness in a vacuum, right? Like you're really focused on the thinking. So I would practice with basic things, and I would be thinking about, okay, I have to start the coffee. Okay, I need to do this, that. And it was like, oh, that's interesting. And OCD maybe popped in from time to time, but like it is definitely a practice of lower arousal states. So starting there.
No doubt.
And yeah, I mean, just calling it out for what it is. Like my husband's like, oh, I always know when you're struggling because I can hear you talking to yourself. Because he'll hear me say like, okay, I hear you. Great. Got it. I hear you. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. And that's how I deal with it, right? Like, again, everyone's journey is different, but I have to sometimes, when it's really loud, be like, I hear you.
Yeah.
Move on.
Thank you.
I mean, repetitively. So,
yeah. I'm so with that though, Kelly. Like the mindfulness side of things is obviously, you and I both
you have
agree
to be
that that's
so aggressive about it.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. So like what I remember about my own journey, especially like right when I was first diagnosed and I was having obsessions about whether or not I'd relapsed on a piece of tiramisu because I've been sober for a long time. And what I remember was that the thing I had to do first was to commit to a decision. Right. I wanted to keep reopening the case because every time the thought popped up, like, but what if you did relapse? It felt scary. And that may not sound scary to other people, but I thought maybe I'm a bad person, or maybe I'm going to live a lie, and that's unacceptable to me. And so to really commit after 2 years of deliberating, which a lot of it happened in my mind.
Yeah.
Although there was a lot of reassurance seeking too. I think after that and making that commitment to, I'm not reopening this case. I'm just not.
Right.
Which is so hard. And then once you commit to put that into practice. So what Chris and Kelly were both saying about like especially not touching that case when you're in an activated space, because if you do, you're not like, you will get stuck. And there is no answer. And that's something you can probably acknowledge when you're in like a calmer state. Like, but I think that's when the mindfulness comes into play, is once I commit, I'm not answering that question again, period, that I'm aggressively present, right? Like
So
I
aggressive.
keep coming back. And I don't mean that, like, obviously we're not trying to push away thoughts. This is not thought suppression. But I hear that a lot too, where people are like, oh gosh,
Right,
but
right.
am I pushing away a thought if I disengage from mental compulsions? Which those are different, right? If I'm allowing the thought, like I may have relapsed, to be there, and then I'm going, okay, I don't know. No longer litigating that. I maybe I did, maybe I didn't. I often stick with maybe I did, because I find that it's more just like there's that whoosh of anxiety. It's so interesting. Even now I can feel it as I say it. Even though I'm not anxious about that particular thing anymore. But I think recognizing, like, yeah, maybe, okay, what's next? Kind of like what Chris was saying, like, what's next? What's right in front of me in my life? And who do I want to be? How do I want to show up in this world? Because that oftentimes shows up as an outward focus, is so much more fulfilling, contenting, and meaningful. And then over time, you end up building all of this pride in yourself for doing hard things and being how you want to be. Yeah.
What I want to ask you, and then we're going to jump into questions, because I definitely want to make sure to get to everybody's. I had two other questions for you, but I'm going to save the last one for the end, because it's about your podcast. It'll just, just remind people you have it. But the question I want to ask you, since you both have OCD, if you could go back to yourself and sit you down at some point and say, hey, if you just recognize this thing, this will help you get better quicker. Stop making that mistake. It's not working. Like, something like that. If there was something that you wish, like, now that you've looked back at your journey and you're in a state where, we're all three of us are in a really good place with it, right? We're not cured per se, but we're not struggling, housebound, things like that. What is one thing that you're like, man, I wish I would have kind of learned this earlier. I wish somebody would have told me this earlier, and it would have clicked maybe for me, and maybe my journey would have been a little bit quicker, that we could pass on to the people watching, so they could maybe try it out or not make the same mistake.
That's a great question.
Think about that one.
I can go first, because I think I think about this a lot, and I have as Kelly and Chris know, I have a 2-year-old daughter, and given that my anxiety, the Chris insists upon calling baby Christina. In fact, her name is not Christina.
That, so.
Yeah. After Chris, obviously, and Chrissy Hodges. In any case, I think a lot about, and my mom and dad struggled so much to support me, and man, did they work hard, and they didn't know, and there wasn't as much information out there then as there is now. But when you ask that question about how do I like what would I want to say to her, or what would I want to share with people in my younger self, people in the audience, I think about what I want to teach my child, which is that it's okay to have any thought or any feeling. It's okay. And it's scary. Like, it's both. And that the best that you can do in the face of thoughts and feelings that you can't control is to hold them with love and kindness, and hold yourself with love and kindness, and live life on your terms.
Beautiful. Well said. Well said.
Really, yeah.
Thank you.
I think that helps my answer, is if I think about my 10-year-old, is I do see a lot of anxiety in her. Unfortunately, both of her parents have a lot of anxiety, but she's with the right parent, right? So when it comes up, I often do say to her, it's okay. Of course you're scared. Your brain thinks it's real, and you're allowed to feel fear. And let's do this together. Let's move forward together in a brave way towards the thing, so that we can learn that it's not as scary as we think it's going to be, right? Because oftentimes it's an experiment. Let's experiment. Let's see what happens. If I'm being completely honest, if my version of me today was to talk to younger version, I think she'd be like, "You're full of shit." I'm going to keep doing this. I think I had to fall totally at the bottom, flat on my face. But yes, it's about acknowledging it's okay to feel scared. It is. That validation is so key.
And you said something really well, Kelly. I mean, I don't think if I would have received treatment for OCD earlier, I would have gotten better.
Yeah.
I think I had to hit rock bottom.
Yep.
And I don't want other people to have to go through that.
No,
That's why I do
know.
these live streams. And I know you're not saying that, Kelly.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I think for some of us, not everyone, right? For some of us, we just have to hit a rock bottom, or we have to get to a point, maybe not a rock bottom, but we have to get to a point where we have that aha moment. Like, I've dedicated 7 years to trying to fix this thing, and I've gotten nowhere. And I don't think I have a problem. I think I have an OCD problem. But yeah, for me, it really took hitting rock bottom to be open and willing to getting help, to seeing it's a mental health condition. And I think because also the reason sometimes people have to hit rock bottom is we're able to like maintain it for so long. And then it's just, clients with perfectionism all the time, they're like, yeah, I have perfectionism, but I got through middle school and high school, but now in the middle of college, I'm just sinking. And it's like, well, you held it together. And now, the OCD's grown past that part.
Yeah. Like, I think the rock bottom piece is like, you have to be willing to give up. Right. Like, and I don't mean give up overall. I mean, give up on the strategies that you think have been keeping you okay. Like, you have to be willing to be imperfect. You have to be willing to be scared. And if you keep going with this, like, I'm going to solve it, like that's where you keep, do you know what I mean?
Totally.
Same result every time.
Yeah.
And that's the same result.
Both of you are bouncing off of my answer to the question. I think also Kelly, my younger self, would have told me to go F himself.
I know, right? Like,
He was very spunky and annoying. But I think for me, really what it was is what I use, and I talk to clients now, and I wish somebody would have said it this outright, but I'll let's say a client is coming in with scrupulosity and they're going on and on and on about how like it's their faith and this faith journey. And I sit down, I'm like, but you're here. I'm not a priest. I'm not a religious figure. I'm not even a religious counselor. Deep down, you don't have a faith problem. In fact, your faith is so important to you that you're willing to spend the last 3 years dropping out of everything important to fight to get your faith back. But you're feeling that fight is actually pulling you further and further away from your faith. You're not reading the Bible anymore. You're not going to church, but you chose me to help you because deep down, you don't have a faith problem. You have an OCD problem. So let's put the faith to the side and let's work more on the mechanics of OCD, how it works, how it tricks. Now, I do think subtype is important because each subtype has its own unique challenges, but deep down, that it's much more about the mechanics of OCD that's keeping you stuck. Because if you really thought you had a faith problem, if you really thought you had a hit and run problem, I'm not the best driver, knock on wood, I haven't gotten a ticket in a while, but don't come to me for driving advice, right? So I think that's what I tell people is you don't have the problem you think you have an OCD problem. And when you treat it like that, it doesn't feel like you're attacking your faith or children or your health or whatever it is that you fixate on, obsess about.
Yeah. And I think the treatment we do, it is a faith thing. It's like you have to take that jump, that leap of faith and totally commit, right? Like hit the baseball all the way through, follow through and be like, all right, I'm surrendering to this treatment. I'm jumping head first. Let's do it.
Well said. I want to jump into the first question. So Kay asks on YouTube I always have to do East Coast time for Emilio, 11:26, is journaling effective for OCD? So if somebody wants to journal, like, is it effective? Is it not? How do you make sure that you're using it for the right things?
Yeah. It's a great question. I think it can be helpful in some ways. Here's where I think it can be helpful. It can help to illuminate where you're mentally compulsing, because you end up like oftentimes if you start journaling, you'll start, sort of like going through, but like whatever mental debate that you may be in about or trying to resolve like something, that it ends up coming out on the page and you kind of have the opportunity to slow down and witness it happening. But I think going in with that mindset of like, okay, I'm just going to witness what in the world is going on in my mind is really important. If you just try to figure it out on the page, you're still not going to figure it out. And I I think that I actually have in the book, there's like a clinician's guide compendium, and I have an exercise for clinicians where it's to lead clients through, where it's like journaling and then going back through and labeling obsessions and labeling compulsions and labeling feelings, so that you can start to kind of see that what's operating, like what's going on in your mind.
Yeah, I loved to journal. I just made sure I didn't use it compulsively. I think what I used it for and what was helpful is, when I was in those spirals, to go back, and my mom was good at it. She's like, "You've done well the last couple of days. Like, go back, look at your journal," and I'd read it. And I'm like, "Oh, I've been doing better than I thought." Amy wrote a nice message. I just wanted to shout her out about me, so I just wanted to thank her. But at 12:10, there was a comment from Lewis. I know besides us just treating OCD, we all are advocates. And Lewis is in Colombia, and just says that they wish that there was a stronger presence in their country. They have OCD, and it's difficult to find a psychiatrist and a psychologist. That's a bummer, like it's already hard to find it. But I feel like what I learned, and everybody needs to check it, but some countries allow other people to work with their clients. I think, Lewis, you maybe just kind of reaching out if there's a clinician you like, to see if they have a license and insurance that can let them work in your country if you can't find somebody in Colombia. But I don't know about y'all. It always breaks my heart when people can't find treatment.
My gosh, it's so upsetting.
Yeah, and if the rules allow us not to treat them, yes.
Yeah.
So definitely look into sometimes like country rules, license rules. Sometimes you'd be surprised. Some countries don't have any regulations, and clinicians can work, and we just get an insurance that covers us internationally. So definitely look at that. At 12:13, Abdullah asks, when combining ACT and ERP, can we notice and accept the presence of uncertainty in background and then move to our values? Or should we first move towards the discomfort feeling to learn? So how I'm reading the question is like, when you're doing ACT and ERP, you're going to notice that discomfort, that uncertainty. Should you more so just like move to your values and focus on that? Or should you move towards the discomfort to learn first and then move to your values?
I would say it's both, right? Like, I wouldn't try to get too nitty gritty or perfectionistic about this process. I think the values are kind of the larger scheme of like, that's what keeps us on track. That's actually what pushes us and motivates us to lean towards discomfort, if that makes sense, right? Like, okay, why am I doing this? Why am I holding a knife in my hand and chopping this near my loved one? Oh, right, because I want to fight for my life and get my life back. I don't know if you have a different feeling or not.
No, I actually, funny, I was going to say very similarly, like, I wouldn't get too granular with it. I think it's all of it. So yeah, similar response. The only thing I will say, I think accepting the presence of uncertainty generates the discomfort, right? And so that's likely to be the sequence of how things happen, is if you're like, oh yeah, I don't know, and that feels scary, I'm going to allow that scary to be there. You don't have to do anything. That's the other piece, is like, when you moving toward the feeling or the discomfort or the fear is moving toward your values, right? Like, that's actually, this is a little bit of a nuance, but I think sometimes people will say, like, Stephen Phillipson talks about it as like the two-tailed spike, and the idea that either way you go is either an exposure or a compulsion. And really in those moments, it's like the most important thing is that you are like headed in the direction that you want to be going with in your life. And so that's, I think, understanding that those two things are not mutually exclusive, that like moving toward fear, moving toward values, probably same.
Great. Kyle asks at 12:17, can my OCD be cyclical?
Yeah. Yeah. Any particular thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, what I'll just add to it is I think what was eye-opening for me about it being cyclical is like, I was thinking that, okay, I'm getting this feeling of, deep down for me, it was always a feeling of unsafety, right? Just feeling like something wasn't safe and I needed to defend and protect. then I would do this thing and then feel good. And then it would come back. And when I learned, like, wait a second, my contribution is making it cyclical, right? Like not from a shame or a blame kind of, judgment, but more so like an empowerment, like, oh, because every single time, I'm trying to think of an example. Well, like I avoided like the alcohol aisle at grocery stores because, like you, Lauren, I'm sober. And so for me, I thought even if I touched a bottle and maybe when they made it, some alcohol got on the outside to get in my skin and absorb it, right?
Yeah.
So when I would treat alcohol like it was the enemy, and kind of like if I had to go down an aisle that had some alcohol, I was like dead middle, right? All of my contribution was just cyclically reinforming my brain, like, okay, alcohol is dangerous. And now I had this whole other kind of experience with alcohol than the average person, right? Like, sure, if I pop it open and I drink it, I think community agrees, like, oh yeah, that's going to get you drunk and break your sobriety. But nobody was telling me this, right? So I think, Kyle, what we're saying is that when you engage in the OCD, it's reinforcing the original obsession and kind of looping back around and just providing more and more evidence that this is a problem. And that's why it almost becomes like identity and lifestyle over the decades of people with having OCD. It's no longer like an obsession. It's like, hey, I'm this person that's unsafe. I got to save myself. And this is the thing. So yeah, just that reinforcement.
100%. I also think that, and I know that this has been my experience personally, is that it can latch onto different content. We see it like on over the lifespan to be kind of cyclical as well, right? That even if you are doing all of the work of disengaging, that some other fear, right, may sort of land in your mind that's a little, off the wall, but that you're like, oh, I'm not willing to tolerate the possibility of this. And then you get hooked back into trying to figure it out. So yes, cyclical in nature in terms of the disorder when you're in it, and also that like it can kind of come and go, ebb and flow over time.
Well said. We have a question from Anna Maria from Facebook at 1227. Hello, thank you for all the information and support. Is it possible to be just anxiety with obsessional elements, not proper OCD? I know it is highly inherent, but I have no family members with this disorder, but anxiety, yes. In any case, does it ever get cured and have no symptoms?
I have lots of thoughts on this. But I will try and be succinct. I personally, I think there are differences in terms of the diagnosis and diagnostic criteria of OCD and anxiety disorders, and functionally, they are very much the same. Right. And so understanding that from my vantage point, if the path to recovery is the same, and the component pieces of like having thoughts and having feelings and wanting to get rid of those thoughts and feelings and engaging in behaviors that don't serve you, that's, I guess, from my vantage point, more important than whether or not something is like OCD or anxiety.
What about maybe I'll take on the genetic component, Kelly. Maybe you could take on the answer about like cured. You were talking, Anna Maria, like your family members only have anxiety, but not OCD. I see that a lot. I see where like no family member also has OCD, but there usually is like a history of anxiety or depression, or maybe a related disorder like hoarding or BDD. So I wouldn't say that. And I haven't heard somebody with like anxiety with obsessional elements. I know anxiety really well. I'm not going to throw them under the bus. But I have some family members with anxiety. And what I noticed is the huge difference is it's by moment. So if there is a situation that I think a lot of us would agree can produce anxiety, like getting to an airport on time, or being rushed, or something like picking up my mom sometimes washes these, so she's going to know who I'm talking about. But picking my mom up from the airport, that person gets extremely anxious, right? But she's not thinking about it any other time. It's like she gets to the airport, she's really worked up about picking us up, stressed out, so anxious, and then once we're out of the airport, fine. For the three of us and everybody watching this, we're all day. This is all day, baby. Like it's just going constantly. Where the family members I know that have a generalized anxiety, it's like it's only around a situation. It's kind of, I call it like a mesa or a table. It's like there's no anxiety. It comes up around that situation, and then it passes. Ours, we're worrying about things when it's not even occurring. And for the last part, Kelly, like when we talk about like, does it get cured? And you have no symptoms, like what do you look at as like recovery of OCD? How do you kind of define it?
Well, how I would define recovery is, are we engaging in the compulsion side, not measuring intrusive thoughts? And I think there's definitely a handful of people that do that, even in my own, client base is like, well, I'm still having intrusive thoughts. It's like, yeah. And then that becomes its own obsession, right? Is like, we measure it based on are you resisting the compulsions? Are you able to live with an intrusive thought and not engage with it, both mentally and physically? I still have intrusive thoughts. Am I actively in an OCD state? No, but I could be if you gave me some time to think about it. There is no cure. No, you can have active moments though, right? Like it ebbs and flows. And I think it depends on moment by moment, life changes, hormone changes. Yeah.
One other, can I ask you guys a question? Do we have time?
Yeah.
Because I'm so curious to hear your thoughts on this. But when people talk about symptoms within OCD, obviously, like when we're looking at the DSM criteria, it's the presence of obsessions and compulsions. But as Chris said earlier in this live stream, like obsessions are none of my business because they're, that we can't control them. And also, there are studies that show that most people experience intrusive thoughts. And so from my vantage point, one of the things I like to talk to people about is like, actually, I don't know that the presence of thoughts or feelings are necessarily symptoms, right? It becomes a disorder when we add that compulsive element. If we view compulsions as the symptoms, then yes, the symptoms can go away because we can make that choice. But I'm curious to know if you guys have any, I don't know, different thoughts on that. Or
No, I mean, there's research that shows that the average person does have intrusive thoughts. I think the difference that we experience is the compulsivity, and I call it like an experience, right? Like, the last time I have an intrusive thought I can remember is I was on a plane and all I wanted to do is sleep. And there was a mom who just decided that her kid could be the center of attention in the plane, and I couldn't sleep. And my brain was just like, I just want to take this mom and throw her out the window, launch her out of the plane, right? And then I giggled and went back to sleep, right? There wasn't that experience. I actually was like, can I get away? No, I'm just kidding.
That's recovery.
But for me, it was like that wouldn't have happened. I had a lot of harm OCD. That was one of my big subtypes. It was a whole experience. Like that would have completely ended me on that plane. I would have been like holding the seat to make sure I won't get up. If I had to go to the bathroom, I'd hold it because I didn't want to get up and go near people. I would be crying. I'd be like leaning against the window and just being like, when is this plane going to land? Like it would have been an experience. And so I think that's how I look at recovery. If I get a thought, or if I have an urge to do something and I don't engage and I kind of move on within a few minutes compared to taking up a week of my life. So do we get to a point where we just never have thoughts and feelings? I mean, if you talk to your friends and family, they're going to say they have some too, but yeah. It just doesn't have that consuming compulsive element that OCD has. And also the D in OCD, right? Disordered, like is your life being impacted and affected? If you're at a point where the OCD isn't causing distress and taking up your life, you couldn't get the diagnosis anyway, so you'd be in recovery, but yeah.
Exactly.
I'll take the next one, and then I have one more for you, and then I'm going to do a little bit of wrap up. I know we started a little late. Malcolm asked at 12:20, can you talk about your treating disgust-themed contamination OCD? I suffer from a severe form of this. Is it true that ERP does not work as well for disgust contamination OCD? If yes, what to do? I'm going to do a pitch. There's a contamination workbook by a therapist in New York named Rich Gallagher. He's really led the charge on disgust-themed contamination OCD treatment. I was fortunate enough to write the foreword of the book, but really because Rich and I connected a few years ago, all of my OCD was really in remission except my disgust. And what's different about disgust is I didn't have a core fear. I had contamination where it was like, I'm going to get sick, I'm going to die, I'm going to get a disease, I'm going to get an STD, like all that. But my disgust was things like if I ate and then touched my phone, all I could think about was how gross my phone was, and I wanted to wipe it down, but there wasn't this fear that would cause. So it's a modified version of ERP, which Rich Gallagher calls the mastery version of that, where instead of focusing more on the contamination, you're focusing more on the value-based experience while tolerating the contamination present, and also using some safety behaviors to systematically desensitize to it, because it does impact a different part of the brain. So hopefully, if you Google, I'll try to do it while they answer the next question that I have for them. But if you Google, I'll try to put it in the chat. But it's Rich Gallagher, the contamination workbook. So if you could look at that. Okay, last question before we do closing. Jesse at 12:42, and I think you had mentioned this, Lauren. Just tuning into this now. I have a tendency to avoid cleaning because I know if I do, I have to be perfect. I know avoidance is bad, but it seems too overwhelming to try and see what happens if I try. So let's say whether it's perfectionism or any other subtype, if somebody feels so overwhelmed that they're using avoidance, why is avoidance kind of bad? And what can someone do if they're in that black or white thinking? I either avoid or it's going to be too overwhelming.
Well, I use it actually as an opportunity to do an exposure to the perfectionism here, right? And to create more flexibility. So I might say, to somebody coming into my office that's saying this exact thing, I would be like, well, your homework this week would be, I want you to clean one part of it and sit with that discomfort. Or do two things with that and sit with that discomfort, right? Because you're kind of doing two exposures at once. You're exposing them to the cleaning, and that they can handle the feeling and do it anyways. And then also the perfectionism, which I think might be at play here, right? The all or nothing. So saying, oh, right, I can do some of this and still go towards values, still go towards the thing I need to do, which is clean.
Yeah, well said.
I wanted to throw up there real quick the comment by Daniel at 12:59, because he says, I don't have OCD, but my wife does, and I definitely have intrusive thoughts, but I don't have compulsions about them. I genuinely forget about them in a few moments. So I think that's like the perfect example of what we were talking about, is the difference between somebody with it and somebody without. They kind of just don't think about it and forget about it. And Daniel, it's not fair. Give us your brain. No, I'm just kidding.
Right, and all the images that go with it.
On the intensity of the feelings, right? It's just so, we're sensitive folk, we with OCD, I think.
Right, it's fight or flight, and the cortisol's running through our body, and feels real. Is just fear, right?
Absolutely. Emilio's going to put the book, I gave him the link to the Contamination OCD workbook in the chat. But to take us out, both of you have Purely OCD podcast. Where can people watch it? And what do you feel is the biggest thing you've learned as somebody with OCD doing the podcast?
So we do have a podcast, as Chris mentioned, Purely OCD. We have been taking a bit of a hiatus because of life stuff. Life has been in session, folks, in a very real way. And we're planning to resume on October 6th. So we meet on YouTube, and the podcast is just, there's a lot of similarity to what we're talking about today, right? It's Kelly and I go through one theme, one topic at a time, and discuss how to implement it in terms of navigating life with OCD. We talk about it from the experience that we have as clinicians and from our lived experience as OCD sufferers. So, so that's the podcast, and YouTube and Instagram. Anywhere else, Kelly?
Is it on Facebook?
It's not on Facebook right now, but there's
Apple Podcasts.
Oh yeah, all the podcast apps as well. And we have a website, purelyocd.com. So you can listen to all the past episodes. There's lots of different links there. But was there what we learned from doing that. Lots.
Yeah. I would say community really is a huge aspect of that. Is wow, like I think the conversations that are had during our podcasts can be really amazing because people are connecting with others just like they are here on this platform of like, oh wow, I'm not alone, right? I'm in this together. It's also a good way to keep me at the best version of my OCD, just like becoming an OCD therapist. It's like, oh right, I have to do the work.
Yeah.
Do the work.
Walk the walk, right?
You do.
So true.
That's how I feel. I'm like, I can't be hosting this, but doing compulsions
right.
before. So it keeps you honest.
It does.
Sure does.
Yeah, Matthew in the comments said he already subscribed. So really good. I really quick looked through your bios to see if I missed anything. The two things I missed is that Lauren can see people in California, Florida, Utah, Nevada, Oregon, Pennsylvania, and select other states and countries. And Kelly Frankie has also received training in dialectical behavioral therapy, which can be very, very helpful for emotional dysregulation. So please check these two women out. They are a huge staple in the OCD community, especially out here. Shout out to Southern California. I think, Lauren, you're speaking at OCD SoCal's conference in November. Kelly and Lauren have both presented at walks and events in Southern California, so we're lucky to have them. Please check out everything that they're doing, Lauren's upcoming book, their podcast. It was great to have them on the stream today. Remember, OCD SoCal has their conference in November. The IOCDF, for all our Spanish-speaking friends, has a Spanish-speaking conference coming up, I think in September. Correct me if I'm wrong, Emilio, but please make sure OCD affects people of all different nationalities, ethnicities, races, and languages. So I know that that's going to be helpful to many. And as always, we're here every Wednesday at 12 Eastern. Make sure to check these two out. And it was great seeing you all today. Take care. And OCD sucks. That's what I just remind people all the time. So listen to it.
And you got this.
You got this. I love it. All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.